Hey y'all. So I figured everybody likes a good origin story. So I thought I'd talk about my life with Tourette Syndrome from childhood up until now. But to keep them relatively short, I'll break it up into a few videos with this one talking about just my childhood. So Tourette Syndrome is a genetic neurological disorder. So for me, I got it from my dad's side of the family. Thanks, Dad. I've never been diagnosed. My tics weren't as bad as they are today. Pretty much this is my dad telling me, he's like, yeah, you got the Tourette's, and that was it. Back when I was growing up in the 80s and early 90s, there wasn't a lot of education or resources out there for Tourette syndrome, and because my tics weren't as severe, they didn't impact my day-to-day life or my schooling, so my parents never saw it, never thought to take me and get me diagnosed or put me on any medication or anything like that. So my earliest memory of someone noticing my tics, probably about 8 or 9 years old. I remember I was sitting in the library, and one of my classmates is pretty much just asking me, like, why are you blinking so much? I don't think they were necessarily making fun of me. They were just seeing something that they saw as not normal, and me thinking, I was like, what do you mean? That's normal to me. So that made me start realizing that some of the things that I'm doing might not be normal. I was a shy kid growing up. Actually, all the way through high school, I was a fairly shy kid. And as far as I can remember, I never did any vocal tics in school. Like I said, it wasn't as severe as it is now, so I was able to hold off while I was in school, but once I got home, that was another story. In my childhood, the one tic that I can remember for a vocal tic was a very high-pitched squeal that I can imagine my parents and siblings really enjoyed. And as for the rest of the tics, a lot of the tics that I have now, I had back when I was a kid. A lot of the same facial tics, the heavy blinking, the mouth, upper lip, half duck face thing. I don't know what you'd call it. The mouth stretching, shoulder tic, and just a lot of moving around. I also had a lip biting tic, and one memory I had from that was, I don't even know how old I was, but we were at the dentist office, and I think I'd already seen the dentist, so I was in the waiting room, and I just started biting the inside of my lip. And I had picked away at it so much that I think if I can remember, I had almost bitten all the way through my lip. And I remember it hurting, but I still had to keep doing it. And I know my mom noticed and took me back to the dentist because she thought it was something that the dentist did, and it was an ordeal, but that was just one of the tics that I remember having. And I constantly bit the inside of my lips and everything growing up, and it was always fun. Another memory that I can remember was just sitting in class, not even paying attention to what's going on, and just fighting the urge to not scream. And to me, and with everything, I thought that was normal. I thought every kid went through that or dealt with that in some way or another. And it's just, again, it was just with the lack of education and resources about Tourette syndrome that I just dealt with it as best as I could. And as I'm, learning more about Tourette syndrome, I am kind of starting to remember, memories from my childhood, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense why I did that now. But it's just, it's just something that I lived with, and I never let it define who I was. I just dealt with it the best way I could, even though I was pretty ignorant in regards to what Tourette syndrome was. So keeping it short like that. God bless and good luck out there.